All right, I'm live. All right, peace everybody. How y'all doing? It's your girl Morgan Renee Myers, tuning in with you all for another reading of this book called Centered: Trading Your Plans for a Life That Matters by former NFL player Jason Brown. This chapter is a little lengthy, so I'm gonna get right through it. I've already read chapters 1 and 2. I'll be uploading them to my YouTube soon. I've somehow misplaced my laptop, so between purchasing another one and going to the library so I can get these uploaded, but nonetheless, Instagram and Facebook. Here we go. Chapters 3, Brothers. Most people who become pro-caliber football players love the sport from the time they were babies. They grew up throwing the football with their dads. They played on pee-wee teams. They were jocks from the time they could tie their shoes. The cool kids on the elementary playground and in the middle school cafeteria. That wasn't me. I was the fat kid getting bullied by a girl a third my size. Her name was Brittany, and I lived in terror of her. It was fall 1996, and we were both at Eaton Johnson Middle School. I was just 13. That summer, an Eddie Murphy movie called The Nutty Professor came out. Murphy played a guy named Sherman Klump, a kindly science professor who broke the weight scales if he ever stood on one. Brittany must have loved that movie, or at the very least, she sure loved telling me how much I looked like Sherman Klump. "Sherman," she hollered down the halls. "Sherman, Sherman, Sherman. Why are you so fat, Jason Brown?" People often think of bullies as the big kid who could just roll up their sleeves and punch the lights out of anyone and look for any excuse to do so. This skinny little girl couldn't punch the lights out of a lamp. I could have picked her up and snapped her in two like a toothpick, but it didn't matter. "Sherman," she hollered, and my blood would run cold. "Sherman," she'd scream, and I'd start to blush. Every day she bullied me. Every day she called me names. If I saw her before she saw me, I'd start walking fast the other way. It got to a point that if I was walking from building to building, I'd stop and look around the corner to make sure she wasn't there. And if she were a rabid dog, I was walking in constant fear. If I'd been into sports at the time, maybe she would have left me alone. Jocks seemed to get passes in school, but I wasn't a jock. I was about as far away from being a jock as you could be. In fact, I was kind of a loser. I lost at everything I did, it seemed, especially to my big brother, Ducey. That's his big brother's name. My brother was named Lunsford Bernard Brown II after my father, but instead of calling him Junior, everyone just called him Ducey because he was number 2. He was our family's free spirit, an artist in talent and temperament. He could draw the most beautiful things in the world, be it a fantastic and elaborate comic book, land, or the backyard right outside our house. His hands were always busy with something. If he wasn't drawing something, he was making something. And as we got older, those hands put aside pencil and paper and picked up hammer and nails. Ducey knew all about carpentry and stonework and masonry, skills that came in handy when he and I helped our dad with his landscaping business. My brother was a natural creator, a builder, and in many ways, he helped build me too. I'm going to be stopping and taking these live alkaline water breaks. So this is a commercial break. Live alkaline water comes from black-owned land, indigenous land in Yadkinville, North Carolina. But with this weather change, my lips have become dry and I need more water through my fruits. This is great, but I also need fruit water and coconut water to help me maintain hydration. So that's what I'm going through. I got to keep stopping and drinking water. Anywho. So it said his brother helped build him too. Ducey was 7 years older than I was, and I idolized him. But here's the deal. He was 7 years older. And every younger sibling knows that means that when we were both home looking for something to do, Ducey called the shots. He loved to watch Star Trek, so every afternoon, that's what we watch. I didn't think that sci-fi stuff made much sense, and I got pretty tired of seeing Klingons every time we turned on the TV, but I still watched. He loved video games, too. He started out with a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis, but when the family got a PlayStation, he found his real passion. He'd play those games for hours until 4 or 5 in the morning sometimes. As soon as his grades would slip, my mother would take the games away, and then his grades would improve. He'd get his games back, and the grades would slip again, and so it went. He became a master at those video games, and a kid like me just couldn't keep up. He'd tell me to play a fighting game with him, something like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, and he just beat me with every single time. Oh, he just beat me with ease every single time. He knew all the moves. He was so much quicker than I was. Other kids might have thought, well, I just have to practice and get better. But there was no way I was going to practice more than Ducey. It was hopeless. And because he beat me so badly every time we played, because he beat me every time, wait a minute. It was hopeless. And because he beat me so badly every time we played, it took all the fun out of it for me. Video games weren't the only things I lost at. In fact, when I was a kid, it felt like I was the Browns' biggest loser. Even when I sat down and played cards with other family members, even straight up games of chance like war, I seemed to lose every single time. I've got bad luck, I tell myself. But luck or no, it didn't do my ego any good or it helped me develop a love for games of chance of any kind. As an adult, I've been to Las Vegas a couple of times and I've walked through my share of casinos, but my memory of losing as a child is so strong that none of it holds any temptation for me. Zero. I don't trust my luck. Maybe that's why I didn't turn to sports right away. That or the fact that my family just wasn't interested in them. My grandfather, Jasper, wanted to give his own children a better education than he had. And my dad had taken that lesson to heart. My parents knew that school, not sports, was the key to success. If athletics entered their minds at all, it was purely an afterthought. And even when I did try sports, I didn't have much luck in that either. My favorite sport is, hands down, baseball, not football. I love to play baseball, and still do, in fact. I'd even played a little of Little League. So when I went into middle school, I tried out for the baseball team. I did everything I could to make the Eaton Johnson middle school team. I failed. I was cut before the season even began. Man, I was crushed. I tried so hard. I put so much effort into making that team. It might have been one of the biggest letdowns of my life. All that losing takes a toll on you. By the time Brittany was screaming Sherman at me in middle school, I was at an all-time low in terms of self-confidence. I felt like the least popular kid at school, a total loser in everything. You'd think that when Ducey and my sister Dana left for college, things would get better. At least I wouldn't be getting thumped playing war and Mortal Kombat all the time. But I did feel pretty lonely. My dad was in Washington, D.C. My mom was a real estate agent in the Henderson area and very active politically. She served for 16 years on the school board and then served another 12 as a county commissioner, the first woman to hold that title and the first African American too. Those duties kept her away for quite a bit of time, so I'd come home, make myself a couple of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and watch some MTV or maybe a few Brady Bunch returns alone. But that time alone wasn't wasted. I didn't wallow in self-pity, at least not much. Once the Brady Bunch was through for the day, I had time to start thinking about what I was going to do with my life. Wow. I wonder how many kids do that. Utilize their free time or alone time to, do some fun things, but also let it be productive and think of how you're going to get out of the situation that you're in when you become an adult. Good for him. He said I had time to start thinking about what I was going to do with my life. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was the fact that I always saw my parents working so hard to better themselves and our family. Maybe there was just something in me that pushed me to think about my future more than most kids my age did. Whatever it was, at the age of 13, I started thinking about what my priorities should be. Good for you, Jason Brown. Faith, I figured, would always be number one in my life. My family had always valued faith so much, and I knew that the Bible said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." Matthew 6:33, King James Version. That was obviously the best place to start. Family came next. I love my family. I knew I'd lay my life down for any of them. I knew from my father's absence how important being with family was to me, so that was definitely number two. Third was education. With my upbringing, how could it not be? So that was it. Faith, family, and education. I committed those goals to memory before I was even shaving. But by the time I was heading into high school, I was also tired of being picked on by the Britneys of the world. I was tired of losing all the time. I was tired of being the chunky low man on the social totem pole. So I decided to do something pretty ambitious. I was going to be a part of the high school band and try out for the football team too. How you gonna do both now? The band plays at the football games. Come on now. Tooting my own horn. Looking back, it was pretty dumb to do both. Okay. we had two-a-day football practices each one around 2 hours long. Band practice was nearly 3 hours. I'd be at school the entire day and into the evening, and after 3 or 4 days of that, I knew something had to give. Something was bound to, break inside of me if I kept going down that path. 1 second, y'all. My Instagram keep getting a notification. So after 3 or 4 days of that, I knew something had to give. Something was bound to break inside of me if I kept going down that path. I had to quit one or the other, and the answer seemed simple. My mama, y'all. All my phones are like older, and the storage on them are full, and so I'll be getting all these notifications while trying to go live, reminding me, you have no storage to be doing this. All right, we back. So football had to go. Football practice was hard, man. It was really physically demanding, and I wasn't in great shape to begin with. It was mentally demanding too. My coach, Randy Long, saw that I had potential underneath all my extra fat. He told me that I might make the varsity squad as a freshman. As soon as some of the juniors and seniors heard that, they started hazing me. At most football practices, you'll see bags or dummies that serve a variety of purposes. When they're laid flat on the ground, you hop and hurdle over them, and they become great tools to improve footwork. Stand them on end and have a football player brace them from behind, and they serve as tackling dummies. Well, being the big kid that I was often holding and bracing those dummies for some of the other players. Whenever that happened, the older kids would charge at it, and me, like I'd insulted their mothers. They tried to knock me flat on my back. I got tired of being a punching bag. Playing in the marching band was a lot easier. I had experience in it for one thing. I played trombone for middle school band, and I liked it. And while band practice was long and tiring in its own way, at least I wasn't going to get many bruises from it. Plus, marching band had, naturally, many more girls. I thought that maybe I'd be able to hang out with some of them. And at the end of the first grueling week, I walked up to Coach Long and did something I hardly ever do. I quit. I explained to him that I wasn't ready to be a football player. Not yet. I'm out of shape, okay? I told him that morning. I've got so much baby fat and stuff on me. I'd spend my freshman year getting rid of the baby fat, I told him. I'd work out and work hard to return that blubber into muscle. Then once I was ready, I'd try out for the football team again next year. Coach Long didn't believe me. He looked at me, and I could tell that the only word he really heard from me was quit. If there's a sin in sports, that's the biggest. Once a quitter, always a quitter, goes the cliche. And in that moment, Coach Long pegged me as a quitter. He took my shoulder pads and probably never expected me to walk into his office for any reason again. Unfortunately, marching band wasn't all I hoped it would be either. Sure, there were a lot more girls in band, but I soon discovered they were all looking at the football players. Just being part of the band stuck me automatically in the friend zone. I gave up on dating anyone really, for a while. Even if Coach Long thought I quit on the team, I hadn't quit on football. I knew I had to get in shape, become stronger, and lose my baby fat. Lifting weights would be the best way to do it, but I couldn't take a weight training course my freshman year. The only time I could find time to lift weights at school was during my lunch period. We had a half hour to eat, so I'd gobble my lunch in 5 minutes and go down to the weight room for the next 25. Coach Long was often in the weight room as well, and I tried asking him for help. I wanted to learn some different techniques on how to lift more effectively, more efficiently. He just brushed me off at first. I've got players to coach, he told me. I don't have time for you. Go ask someone else. But I kept going to the weight room. I kept lifting. I kept getting stronger. Every day, Coach Long saw me in there working my tail off just like I had told him I would. Finally, after weeks of this, he started paying attention to me. He started helping me. So you gotta, sometimes that's what it be. You gotta put in the work yourself so that people can see that you're serious. Because a lot of times, people waste time on people that don't even value the information they're giving them. And it's like, dang, I wasted all my time and energy on them for them to do nothing with it. Yep, gotta put in that work. But I kept going to the weight room. Finally, after he started helping me. You're not getting low enough, he'd tell me as I tried to squat 315 pounds. Unlock your hips first and make sure you get parallel. He encouraged me to try out for the track and field team that spring, and I did. Not as a runner, of course, but as a discus and shot put thrower. That May, on my birthday, actually, I won the high school state championship in discus by throwing the metal disc 149 feet on a cold, rainy, miserable day. That's about 15 feet further than I'd ever thrown. To this day, I still don't know how I did it. With that success, and with the fat that was indeed slowly melting into muscle, the Britneys of the world started looking at me a little differently. Sure, a girl did turn her nose up at me when I came straight from the weight room to the science class. I worked up quite a sweat, and I'm sure I wasn't the most pleasant smelling guy to sit next to. But my classmates would see that I was changing. I had just turned 16 years old. It felt as though my whole life in high school anyway, was turning around. No one was calling me Sherman anymore. Be better than me. The next year, I tried out for the football team, just like I told Coach Long I would, and I began to excel there. I stayed on the track team, too, competing in both discus and shot put. I eventually won state championships in both. In fact, I won the state championship in discus 3 times. But sports still didn't crack my priority list. It was still faith, family, education. I might have been good at football. It might have helped make me more popular at school, but what happened on the football field or at a track meet took a back seat to what I did in class. I've already said how important education was in our family, and that both Ducey and Dana went to college. But my family wasn't rich, and it wasn't easy for my parents to send them. I sometimes heard my parents in heated debates over how they were going to afford all that schooling. I didn't want to put my parents through that a third time. If there's anything that I can do to take that burden off my parents where they don't have to worry about paying for college, I'm going to do it, I told myself. I worked far harder in the classroom than I did on the football field because I was angling for an academic scholarship after high school. I wanted someone to pay me to go to college. I wasn't even thinking about an athletic scholarship. None of my family even considered such a thing. I played football just to widen my social circles a little. For me, football wasn't about the thrill of the game or the competition or dreams of playing in the NFL. I wasn't wired for any of that. It was about being liked. That changed one day when Coach Long suggested that academics weren't the only way a university would pay for my schooling. Jason, what are your goals in high school? He asked. What do you want to achieve here? No brainer, I thought. After all, I had my list of priorities. Academics are my first priority, I said. I want to get good grades. I want to go to college. So what about football, he asked. What do you want to achieve there? I shrugged my shoulders. I just want to play for you and have a good time, I said. But my academics always come first, all right? I need that scholarship. I think he almost rolled his eyes. Jason, don't you know you could earn a scholarship playing football? Just like that, a bell went off in my head. Seriously? I asked. Sports were so off my family's radar that it had never occurred to me that someone might pay me to go to college to play sports. Seriously, Coach Long said, I think you've got a shot at one. That changed the trajectory of my high school career. It wasn't as if my education took a backseat to football. I still studied hard, still graduated as a member of the National Honor Society, but knowing I had 2 chances for a scholarship, one in football and the other in academics, made me redouble my commitment to the sport. I gave it my all during every single practice, so much so that when practice was over, I'd have nothing left. I'd go home, take my shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep at 7:30 or 8. But I still had homework to do, so I set my alarm for 3 in the morning. When the alarm went off, I'd head straight for the bathroom, splash cold water on my face, and get to work. Later in my high school career, while the rest of my classmates were socializing and goofing around during their lunch period, I sneaked my lunch into the library and used that time as an extra study period. Wow, he was really determined. Great skills to have as a teenager, because, Lord, I went to go sub at this high school the other day, and them kids don't give a damn about nothing. Out of the 700 students, I was the only one using the library during lunch. In fact, I wasn't supposed to be eating lunch there, but it was what I had to do. I told the librarian just that after she caught me one time eating a sandwich. I promised her I'd never do it again, but the next day I was back during lunch. I was there every lunch period after that, too. She could probably tell I wasn't missing any meals, so I think she just came to an understanding. Don't ask, don't tell. Hey, Jason, are you coming in here to study? She'd ask. Yes, ma'am, I'd say. Meanwhile, back at home, the house was filling up again. My dad had truly retired from his job in Washington, D.C. when I was in high school, and Ducey was back, too. He'd gone to North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, A&T, which is in my city, Greensboro, North Carolina, and we have something called GHO, the greatest homecoming on earth, which at the time that I'm reading this book, October 23rd, 2022, our GHO, I'm saying our like I went there, but it's a city thing. They take over the city. It's taking place this week, so the city be lit. People come in from all over. It be all kind of events, concerts, comedy shows, all kind of things going on. I went to University of North Carolina at Greensboro, but A&T is a historically black college, and it's pretty well known. It's pretty lit. I do have some credits from there because I was in a program in high school that allowed me, called Upper Bound, that allowed me to get credits for taking some courses there that then transferred to my college. But yeah, anyway, so he gone to A&T on a ROTC scholarship. But as you remember, he also loved video games. Well, in college, he got around a whole bunch of other students who love video games just as much. He washed out of school, came back home, and started picking up odd jobs here and there. He worked at a restaurant for a while. He worked at a cable company. Dang, he really let games mess up his college? Because his parents wasn't there to take away his stuff. He moved back in with my parents and started working as a guard at a nearby prison. Ducey had battled earlier with some maturity and time management issues, and he was paying the price for that now. Yet, even if he was struggling to find his way a bit, he came into his own as a brother. Ducey knew he'd made mistakes, and he was determined to make sure I didn't make the same ones. As I was finding new success in high school, he was encouraging me in everything I did, filling me up with love and praise and advice. Jason, I want you to do better than me, he said. Jason, be better than me. He kept pushing me, kept encouraging me, kept pouring love and affirmation and support into me like the best big brother in the world. I wasn't losing to him anymore. He was helping me win. College bound. It was my junior year, and we were already in the middle of track and field season. The team boarded the school activity bus to head out to the meet with Coach Long doing the driving. But as I was about to board, he closed the door bus partway so that I couldn't climb on. Jason, stop right there, he hollered. The rain was pouring down, splattering over my jacket and wetting my face. Coach, it's raining, I said, as if he couldn't see that for himself. Let me on the bus. No, he said. I want you to soak in this moment. I want you to remember this moment for the rest of your life. I wasn't thinking about soaking in the moment. I was thinking about the rain soaking into my clothes. I'm pretty sure I'm going to remember this, okay? I hollered through the rain. What is it? I just got off the phone with Coach Ken Browning from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Coach Long said, they want to offer you a full ride, a full scholarship to play for them. I stood for a minute, the rain forgotten. Wow. Really, Coach? Yes. That's awesome, I said. Can I get on the bus now? He opened the door, and I climbed aboard, wiping water from my face. Wow, I thought again. All this weightlifting and the practices and all the 3 a.m. mornings, they paid off. The University of North Carolina was going to pay my way through college. The race. Happily ever after, right? My dreams, my expectations, everything I wanted to achieve in the short term had been realized. Not only did I know that I was college bound, but I had reached new levels of popularity. In my senior year, I was voted both homecoming and prom king. 0 to hero, they say. Wow, he really did have a transformation. Because to hear him tell it, he was such a loser. And his confidence was so low. So it looked like his own determination and discipline, and then focus in sports helped him achieve this new person. Because that's really what it's about. It's really about personal development. Like, when you go through life and life is happening, because life don't happen, it's really about the mindset of how you handle things. Are you a solution provider? Are you a problem solver? Or you just complain when things happen? Are you able to look and see what things you need to work on, or do you just complain that life is happening and everything and everybody is against you? Okay, Jason, thank you for sharing this with us. So 0 to hero, they would say. That was me. I was Northern Vance High School's homegrown hero. Everyone was saying so, and I listened. Boy, did I listen. Almost everyone in my life was pumping my ego up like a balloon. Ducey was trying to keep my feet on the ground. He started warning me about the dangers of thinking too much of myself. Jason, look, we're all proud of you, he told me, but you need to have some humility too. I didn't listen. Why should I? I was headed to UNC on scholarship. He'd washed out of school. I worked really hard and excelled both on the football field and in the classroom. When Ducey was my age, he worked hard and excelled at only one thing: video games. My future was limitless. He was working at a prison. His future, it seemed, was literally locked in a cage. I didn't have to put up with his love of Star Trek or his skill at Mortal Kombat anymore. My big brother wasn't beating me at everything like he used to. He wasn't beating me at anything. Better than me, he had told me. Well, his wish came true. I was better than he was, or so I thought. I loved him too much to say it, up until the day we buried my grandmother. She died in spring 2001. She had lived the latter part of her life in Washington, D.C., so the whole family went up for the funeral. Not many people knew about my scholarship then, so for me, the funeral served double duty. Our whole extended family could remember my grandmother and celebrate my achievements at the same time. For most of the day, that's exactly how things played out. Everyone at the funeral was praising me. I, of course, soaked it all in like a paper towel. Ducey was getting a little tired of hearing, "Great job, Jason," and "Way to go, Jason." He saw my pride. If he couldn't hold down my helium-filled ego, he was determined to prick it. We were standing outside the church in our black suits and dress shoes. He'd heard the praise I'd gotten all day, and I was ready for more from him, from my big brother. Instead, he turned to me and looked me in the eye. "Jason, everything you've done is great," he started, "but you need to show a little humility in your high position." He said this to me before, and I'd always smiled and nodded and completely ignored him. This time, Ducey went further. He was just offering me advice. He was a little fed up with me, and he was about to let me know it. "I'm your big brother, and you know what that means?" he said. "I'm always going to be bigger than you, faster than you, and stronger than you." My eyes opened wide like a cartoon character's. Ducey had obviously lost all perspective, all sense. No way he was bigger than I was. That was obvious. No way he was faster or stronger. He wasn't going to UNC on a scholarship. I wasn't the fat tag-along kid anymore. I wasn't the little boy at Lunsford. I wasn't the little boy that Lunsford would beat so badly in video games. Who was Ducey, pretending he was better than me, I thought. Hasn't he been listening to everyone else? I was furious. I wanted to just punch my brother in his face. Maybe he wanted to punch me too. But we were dressed in our funeral clothes. We were mourning our grandmother. We weren't going to start fighting right outside the church. We were angry, but we had enough sense and grace to stay away from anything stupid. "You're faster and stronger than me, huh?" I told Ducey. "Really? You want to make a bet?" The street in front of the church was an empty strip of asphalt. Many of my grandmother's mourners were slowly dispersing. "All right, let's see who's faster," I said. "Right now." So we took off our jackets and stepped into the street with our sharp seats, pants, and dress shoes. A few family members had gathered to watch, laughing and talking a little. And sure, it might have looked as though Ducey and I were just kidding around, blowing off a little steam after sitting in that church for so long. But I wasn't just kidding. We decided to run down 50, maybe 60 yards, a distance familiar to me from football practice. Ducey used to play football too, but that was years ago. Who knew how long it'd been since he'd run? I figured I had the race in the bag. "Ready?" someone said. I felt the asphalt through the soles of my shoes. Now, after all this time, I was going to put my big brother in his place to show him who really needed to be humble. After so many years of getting beat by Ducey, I was going to be him. After spending my entire childhood following his lead, he was going to follow me for a change. Set. I leaned forward a little, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ducey do the same. He might have been smiling. I don't know. I wasn't. The time had come to show him, to show my family, I wasn't the fat little baby brother anymore. I was a big man and a big deal. That I was everything my parents hoped I'd be, and I was determined to make sure everyone, including Ducey, knew it. Go. My shoes pushed against the asphalt, sending me farther, faster down the street. I could hear the sound of my soul scraping and felt the wind in my face as I saw Ducey, my layabout video game-loving brother Lunsford, in front of me. I pushed harder. I tried to run faster. It didn't matter. Big brother beat little brother by a country mile. I crossed the finish line, wherever it was, and bent over, hands on my knees. I was huffing and puffing like the big bad wolf. Ducey walked over to me, smiling arrogantly, I thought, at the time. "Look, man, we're all proud of you," he said, "but you can be humble as well, all right? You don't have to walk around like you're the big man on campus, like you're a big shot." I should have listened. I should have smiled, nodded, and shaken his hand, giving him a hug. More than that, I should have humbled myself, just like Ducey told me I should. But I'd been beat. Again. I was hurt, humiliated. At a time when I was finally feeling good about myself, it felt like Ducey was trying to drag me back down, put me back in a place that I had long outgrown. I stood up straight and stared at him, eyes as icy as I could make them. "You know what? I've got a scholarship to play football in North Carolina," I yelled. "What are you doing with your life that's so great? What are you doing with your life that's so awesome?" I waited for the angry words, for the comeback that Ducey always seemed to have at the ready. He had a quick mind and a quick wit, as skilled with comebacks as he was with pencils and paintbrushes. If someone jabbed him, he'd always have a parry ready to go. But not today. I watched the smile fall from his face and the mirth and kindness drain from his eyes. Earlier, I wanted to punch him in the face. Right now, He looked like I had. He didn't say a word. He turned and walked away. Did I feel bad? Maybe. But I was too angry to notice, too sure of what I said, and too enthralled by this cheap little victory to care. Dana, our sister, had watched the whole thing. She said, "Jason, you're a jerk. You need to apologize." "No," I said, "I'm not going to apologize. He doesn't deserve it." And I walked off too. My sister was right. Of course she was right. Ducey was right too. I let my hurt and pride and arrogance take control. But sometimes I think God can use even our mistakes for his purposes. He can bring his goodness out of our badness. A couple of months later, I noticed that Ducey was doing things differently. He was dieting, exercising. After years of bouncing from job to job, he was showing a focus that no one had ever seen. I don't know why. No one in the family did. Not until he made an announcement. "I finally know what I'm going to do with my life," he said. "I'm going to dedicate my life to service. I'm going to join the United States Army." I tried to talk him out of it at the time. I thought of him and all his talents, the beautiful pictures he drew, the work he did with stone and brick and wood, and selfishly, I didn't want him to go. The United States wasn't sending troops to Iraq or Afghanistan at the time, but to serve in the military is an inherently dangerous calling. Risk is part of the job. "The military?" I said. "Why you want to do that, man? There are so many other things you can do with your life." He looked at me, didn't even pause. "Jason, I've got to do this," he said. "Before you can help somebody else, you first have to help yourself." He said it with such a boldness, such conviction. I didn't understand what Ducey was telling me fully at the time, but I knew he meant it. I knew I couldn't talk him out of it and that I shouldn't. I had to accept Ducey's decision. I walked over to him and hugged him. He married his fiancée, Sherry, that fall. 2 days later, he went off to basic training. After years of feeling stuck, Ducey was experiencing some massive changes, exciting changes. I was too, taking my scholarship offer and heading an hour's drive southwest to Chapel Hill. I was a Tar Heel now. Losses and lessons. The University of North Carolina is basketball country. With 7 national championships and 18 Atlantic Coast Conference titles on his ledger, how could it not be? Michael Jordan and Los Angeles Lakers legend James Worthy both played there, on the same team, in fact. When people think North Carolina Tar Heels, they think hoops, not gridiron. But when I arrived, you could sense a potential shift. The basketball program was going through a rare rough patch, yet in 2001, the first game I saw action in fact, the Tar Heels football team beat Florida State University, a program that at the time was ranked 6th in the nation. It was a first in the school's football history that North Carolina had beaten a top 10 team. After losing our first 3 games that season, we finished the rest of the regular season with a 7-2 record, polishing it off with a 16-10 win against Auburn in the Peach Bowl. Hopes were high for the following season. But the team sagged my sophomore year. I moved from offensive tackle to center that year, the position that my line coach, Hall Hunter, called the line's most important position, and started all 12 games. But the team finished 3-9. Going into my junior year in 2003, I didn't see any reason to believe that the team would be much better. My life wasn't falling apart or anything. My grades were strong, and earlier in college, I met the love of my life, Tay. Beautiful, brilliant, ambitious Tay. I'll have much more to say about her later, but for now, I can just say that from our first days together, she became my rock, and we'd known each other for just a few days when I knew without a doubt that she's who God wanted me to spend the rest of my life with. She and I were married in the summer of 2003. But when you play Division I football, everything else in your life, grades, relationships, everything, must make space for the sport. Football takes an enormous amount of your time, energy, and spirit. Sure, I was doing my job well, according to the coaches. I was considered one of the strengths of an otherwise disappointing team. Some people were. Yes, it's nice to play well. It's nice to hear your coaches praise your efforts. It's even nicer to win. I could have played a perfect game, but it didn't mean much if I headed into the locker room a loser. When you play football, you're a piece of a machine. You can be really great. You can be a really great piston in an engine, but if that engine doesn't turn over, it doesn't matter much. It doesn't much matter. And when the season looks like it's heading south before it even begun, you're bound to feel disproportionately gloomy too. Ducey, meanwhile, had become a father. His daughter, Amber, was born in June 2003 while he was in Iraq. He wasn't allowed to go home to see her, but Ducey's wife, Sherry, sent him pictures of her regularly. And every day when he was out in the field, he'd wear a picture of his daughter on his ID band strapped to his right arm. That August, at the end of our long, hard football training camp, my parents came to Chapel Hill to have dinner with Tay and me. I was really looking forward to it. It was a great opportunity, I thought. to vent about everything that was going wrong with my life. If there was any shoulder that's good for crying on, it was Mama's. Right after Tay and I climbed into the backseat of my mom and dad's vehicle before dinner, I launched into my sorrows. I recapped the team's horrible season last year. I told her that the team wasn't going to be any better this year. All the guys are selfish, I said. They're just way too into themselves. Looking back, that's pretty ironic, me pointing a finger of blame at everybody else. I was pretty full of myself in that moment, thinking I was a strong link in which I perceived to be the weak chain, my football team. My brother had cautioned me. He told me to be humble. You don't have to walk around like you're the big man on campus, he'd said. But I was the big man on campus. I was setting weightlifting records for the school. Humble? At the time, I still didn't feel like I had anything to be humble about. All my problems, all my woes, I was sure they were somewhere else's fault. I knew that if anyone could understand that, could understand all my woes and hardships, it would be my mom. She'd make me feel better. She'd commiserate with me, reassure me, just like she'd always done. Oh, baby, everything's going to be all right, she said. You just work hard and do your best, and that's all anybody can ask for. But she didn't say that. She just sat there in the front seat, not uttering a word. That's not like Mom at all. She had something to say about everything. So after I went on for about 10 minutes, mapping out all my sorrows and frustrations, I began to worry. Did she fall asleep? I wondered. Mama, can you hear me? Are you listening to me? She hadn't fallen asleep. She was thinking of just the right words to say to make me feel better. You need to shut up, she said, not even turning around. You need to shut up. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. She wheeled around to look at me, flushing my face, her eyes hard and hurt. Nothing you're going through in your life right now, nothing can compare to what your brother's going through fighting and serving our country in Iraq and Afghanistan, she said. That was all she said. She turned back around, and that was it. That was all she needed to say. If my ego had been a balloon, one that had gotten bigger with each passing year since I was 16, Mom had effectively untied the string and let all the air raspberry out. After it was completely deflated, I realized just how full of pride and selfishness I'd been. I had been thinking of only myself when my brother, someone I loved, someone I respected for so much of my life, was going through trials and hardships and dangers that I could never, ever imagine. And both of these were choices that they chose to do, but I didn't say sorry. I didn't say anything. Nothing else needed to be said. That before dinner speech of my mother's, as short as it was, flipped my attitude completely around. Football suddenly got a lot easier, not physically, but mentally. Listen, playing football at a high level is never easy. I worked hard that season, as hard as ever. I lost plenty of sweat in practice and games, but my mom helped put all that work and all that I was going through into perspective. I stopped wallowing in self-pity. I started to reflect more on the elements of my life that were truly important to me, the things that meant something. If I had a bad practice, I thought about my brother and his desert camouflage patrolling the streets of Abu Ghraib. If I lost the game, I thought about Deucey's daughter and how much she must long to see her. All right, let me go get my charger out the car. One moment before it dies. Get my 1 second, guys. My portable charger out. Guys, for portable chargers. I'm at this little park. It's so relaxing. Y'all make sure y'all take some time to get in nature now. Back. Get it set up good. Wait till I get my production team. We ain't gonna have none of these problems. It's coming. All right. Dang. I'm trying to get the phone to stand up while it's charging. Jesus. There and there. All right. And I don't have the editing skills to edit this out, so we're just gonna leave it. All right, so he was thinking about how his brother would feel and how much he missed his daughter. The knock. My father heard the news first. It was September 21st, a Sunday. My mom was already at church for Sunday school. My dad was still at home getting ready to meet her for the service when he heard the knock. He opened the door and saw the men in their green dress uniforms and spit-polished shoes. He knew. Before they opened their mouths, the tears welled up in his eyes. "Y'all get off my porch," he shouted. "Get off my property. Whatever you came here to tell me, I don't want to hear it." He shut the door in their faces. He started weeping. He couldn't stop. But they didn't leave. My mom was at church and Sunday school when the church phone rang. "Deborah, it's your husband, Bernard." "Hey, honey, is everything all right?" Moments later, her fellow churchgoers watched as she fell to her knees. We lost again. The day before, we played a road game up in Wisconsin, 38-27, our third straight defeat. But when you play Division I football, you get very little time off. That Sunday morning, I was getting ready to go back to the facility. The medical staff needed to check us out. We players needed to watch game film to see what went next, what went wrong, and how we could improve next week. My mom called around 10:30, maybe 11. It wasn't unusual for her to call, as we often talk after a game. She sounded normal enough. "Hey, son, how you doing?" she asked me. "Doing good, Mom." "Are you getting ready to go back to the football facility?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. She might have paused just a little bit before she spoke again. "Hey, baby, I need you to do something for me. Do you have Coach Button's number?" Coach John Button was the head coach for the Tar Heels football team my entire career at UNC. He recruited me. But when my mom said this, part of me wanted to roll my eyes a little. I thought at first she was kidding. See, Mom would sometimes joke around with me after a game. "You know someone needs to talk with your coach about how you played," she'd say. "Give him some good advice." Every time I tell her no. "Don't you ever say anything to my coach," I tell her. "Please don't be that, Mom, trying to tell him how to do his job." "Mom," I said with a touch of mock exasperation in my voice, "why do you need my coach's number?" Mom was still very calm, very composed, but she wasn't relenting. "Just get it for me, would you? Could you do that for me quickly? I need it as soon as possible." Sure," I said. "I'll work on it right now." I just hung up when I got another call, this one from my Aunt June. "Hey, Jason," she said, sounding a little strange. "How are you doing?" "I'm doing good, Auntie," I said, really puzzled by now. Good," she said. "Listen, have you talked with your mother?" "I just got off the phone with her," I said. "She was just asking for my coach's phone number." "What's going on, Auntie?" No. Yeah, you just need to call back your mother." "What's going on, Auntie?" I asked, her voice rising a little. "Just call your mother back," Aunt June said. After receiving my aunt's suspicious call, I knew there was a full-fledged family-wide conspiracy going on, so I called my sister in Washington, D.C., but she didn't know any more than I did. By now, I knew that something serious was happening, but I hadn't put together all the pieces yet, so I called my mom back. "Did you get me the number for your coach yet?" she asked. "No, Mom, no." I said, "What's going on?" "Look, Aunt June knows there's something going on. Dana knows something going on. What's happening?" She paused. "Son, I just need you to do what I asked you to do, all right? I need you to get me the number for Coach Button." Suddenly, the truth hit me. It hit me hard. I felt it like a bullet in the center of my spirit. "It's Ducey, isn't it?" I said. She took another long pause. "Yes, baby," she finally said. "It's your brother." Mom knew how hard the news would hit me. She knew how devastated I'd be. She wanted my coach's number to make sure I'd be safe, to arrange for travel back home to Henderson. She knew I'd never be able to see the road through my tears. Army Specialist Lunsford Bernard Brown II died September 20th, 2003 in a mortar attack in Abu Ghraib, Iraq. He was 27 years old. He left behind a loving wife, Sherry, and a 3-month-old daughter named Amber, a daughter who looked just like him, a daughter who'd never seen him in person. I hadn't seen him myself since 2001, 2 long years. Before you can help somebody else, you first have to help yourself, he told me. I can still see his face as he said it. The words rolled through my mind as if he is in front of me, speaking to me now. How many prayers had we said between his mother and father and brother and sister and all his friends and family? How many thousands and thousands of prayers have been said on behalf of him, asking God, begging God to protect my big brother every day, every night, every meal. So many prayers, and to have that happen, to have them seemingly go unanswered, it just makes you wonder, what's going on, God? Why? I made it home to Henderson safely. Coach Button drove Tay and me there himself. Looking back, it was a tremendous sacrifice for him. His team had just suffered a crushing loss. A game against North Carolina State was next, our biggest rival aside from Duke. He had work to do, hours upon hours of work to get ready for the next game, but he found the time to drive me home himself. I spent the rest of that Sunday and most of Monday with my family. Those who've lost someone close to them can probably imagine what that time was like. You cry and wipe the tears away, and then you cry some more, wipe away more tears. And when you think you've got no tears left to shed, you cry some more. It feels like it'll never stop. I want to cry just reading it. I wonder if, because he said those mean words to his brother, and then that got some oomph in him, and it made him want to go out to the Army. I wonder if Ducey felt like he really didn't have a place, because all he was good at, it seemed, was gaming, and then he had to come home because he couldn't keep his grades up. And so I wonder if, you know, when you don't really know what you want to do, the Army is like a go-to, because you know you'll get paid, you know you under their jurisdiction and all of that, but you know for sure that you're getting some good income. And I wonder if Ducey really never found, you know, his passion or what he felt like he was supposed to do, and chose that. And then I ain't putting nothing out there. I just wonder. These are just thoughts. Damn, Ducey, only 27 and got killed in battle. Now I kind of wish he'd stay home and stayed safe and just did his painting, but you could get shot in the streets anywhere. So, my mom encouraged me to go back to Chapel Hill to spend time with my other brothers, as she called them, some of whom I had called selfish for a month or two before. I returned to school Monday night and was back at class and practice on Tuesday. I played the game against North Carolina State. The record shows we lost 47-34, and I'll take the record's word on that. I don't remember the game. I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened that afternoon on the field. My body was there, snapping the ball and blocking just like always. Physically, I did my job, but mentally and spiritually, I was somewhere else. I only remember red that day, the red of my opponent's jersey. Not a single snap, not a single block, not a word, not a play, just red. Ducey's funeral was the next day. A week after my dad told the soldiers to get off his porch, a week after my mom collapsed to her knees, 2 charter buses brought the whole football team, all the players, the entire coaching staff from Chapel Hill. Many coaches talk about how a football team is family. Most of the time, it's just that, talk. Spend a little time with the coaches, with the players, and you see that their character is far away from the idea of family. But when I saw all my teammates file into church right after a loss to North Carolina State, right when they should have been breaking down game film and preparing for the next opponent, I knew it wasn't just talk with this team or with Coach Bunton. I remember looking into the eyes of every single one of my teammates that day. They shed just as many tears as I did. And guess what? Every single one of those tears they shed was like one less tear that I had to shed myself. The Apostle Paul wrote in Galatians 6:2, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. That day, my teammates were carrying my burdens. They were carrying my pain. They were there for me at the lowest point in my life. Sometimes people ask me if I miss football. Every time, the answer is the same, no. But the friendships, the camaraderie, I do miss that. I treasure the memories of those times and the friendships I still have. My mom called them my other brothers, and she was right. They're my brothers. They're my family. Tagged. The mortar round came right through Ducey's tent. It hit the table where he was standing. Ducey was the closest to the blast. His body absorbed most of the shrapnel, and by being where he was, he saved lives. Ducey died, but the soldiers who stood behind him lived. The blast was so strong that it tore through both his dog tags right where his heart was. Sherry kept one of those dog tags, the one that was the most intact, but she gave me the other one, the one with the clear and obvious hole in it. The hole's near the bottom, right where his middle initial is stamped. The hole's jagged, it's sharp. I wore that dog tag around my neck every practice, every game for the rest of my college career. I turned the jagged side in so I could feel the metal wound. When I put on my tight shoulder pads, when I pulled on my fitted jersey, I could feel the tag press into my skin, into my chest. That was my reminder. Jason, you have nothing to complain about, that pain told me. Jason, you have nothing to feel sorry about. There's no pain you can feel, no pain you can experience that compares to what your brother sacrificed. Not everyone knew I was wearing it, but every hit I took, every block I threw, I feel Ducey's tag dig into me a little more, pricked me where it counted. That pain, strangely, made me joyful. It gets hot in Chapel Hill. Practices can go for 2 or 3 hours at a time. You're working and running and hitting and falling. Sometimes all the work and effort and contact, and especially the heat, can feel unbearable. While my teammates complained, I walked around with a smile on my face. "Come on, guys," I'd holler. "Come on, let's push a little harder." See, the pain of practice was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. It was the thorn in my flesh. In 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 8, Paul wrote about his own thorn. He asked, pleaded, according to some versions, for God to take it away. But God said, "No, my grace is sufficient for you," God told him, "for my power is made perfect in weakness." In verse 10, Paul said that he was glad for the reminder. "I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities, for when I am weak, then I am strong." That dog tag reminds me of my weakness. It reminded me that we're all weak, that life itself can be fleeting and to our mortal eyes far too short. But it reminds me too of the strength we find in God, that in our weaknesses, his strength is made manifest, that when we live in him and follow him, we can be content with whatever comes our way. A 3-hour practice in 90-degree weather isn't enough to rob us of that contentment, of that joy. I don't know why Deucey was taken from us. I still miss him. I will never stop missing him. I don't know why God allowed what happened to happen. But I do know that my brother lived a full life, a life worthy of honor and praise. The whys of what happened never go away, but the gratitude, the joy that he was with us for as long as he was, and the understanding that while here he made lives better, comes back. We may cry because our loved ones are gone, but we can smile because they were here. That they impacted our own lives, that they helped shape us and mold us for the better. We have hope that we'll see them again someday. Sometimes, by way of an icebreaker, people will ask what 3 people someone would most like to eat dinner with. If someone asked me, I wouldn't name a football player. I wouldn't name a celebrity. I want to share a meal with Jesus, with Grandpa Jasper, with my brother. Those 3 live well. They fought the good fight of faith and finished their race. That's what I want to do as well. Fight the good fight. Finish the race. Live a life of purpose. Wow. That was a great chapter. All right, so that was chapter 3, Brothers of Centered, Trading Your Plans for a Life That Matters by former NFL player Jason Brown. Hope you all enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more readings of Black books by Black authors. All right, peace.